On Saturday, April 24th, 2021, I will be in Kenosha, Wisconsin at the Better Discourse event. If you want to see me live doing a panel, I believe mine's on policing, then definitely get your tickets. Come out. It will be a great time. I had a lot of fun in there. There's an after party. You can buy me a drink. You can ask me to buy you a drink, but I definitely won't. But I will take the drink that you bought me and maybe ask somebody else if you really need somebody to buy you a drink to buy you a drink because I'm a nice guy like that. April 24th, Kenosha, Wisconsin. BetterDiscourseEvent.com. Link in the description. So I know I already covered the Daunte Wright case. I gave you excellent commentary that was elegant and beautiful in every way. But there was an update after I shot my video, but before I uploaded my video, that Kimberly Potter, the woman who actually shot and killed Daunte Wright, was charged with second-degree manslaughter. Now, I haven't examined this charge specifically to see if it's a good fit for what she actually did, but the charges against her do make sense. She made a mistake as a police officer that caused somebody to die. However, what I want to address is something that was appearing in my comments of that video multiple different times, despite the fact that I addressed it in the video, and that was people saying that it's absolutely ridiculous that you would mix up your sidearm for your taser. A Glock and a taser, they have completely different weights. Now, I described this in that last video as people who are just smart enough to be incredibly stupid, because that's exactly what they are. Because people would actually comment on my videos explaining to me how this police department actually put the gun on one side and the taser on the other side of the officer to avoid this confusion. Now, implicit in doing that to avoid this confusion is that in high-stress situations, when both arms were on the same side, it was probably more common for people to mix up the two. So you're admitting that this does happen. Now, a lot of people got mad at my cereal analogy, where I said that sometimes when I pour a bowl of cereal, I put the milk on the table or where the cereal goes, and I put the cereal box back in the fridge. And they said, listen, she was a 26-year veteran training with her firearm, blah, 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 blah. As if that has any relevancy whatsoever. You can do a job for a long time and make a mistake. If you think people don't make mistakes on their first day on the job, just as they would 26 years later on the job, you're not paying attention. The point of that video was to explain that even though she made a mistake, when you make a mistake like this as a police officer and somebody dies, you are to be held accountable for that mistake. Obviously, it was an error. Obviously, she's responsible for that error. But the idea that it was somehow not a mistake because you don't think in a clear-minded situation you would be able to mix up the two is completely irrelevant. It's asinine, and it's honestly the fuel of conspiracy theories against this woman. She did the wrong thing. She is being charged in that. And one of the ironies of that video is that a lot of people left me comments letting me know that I actually used the body cam video, but it was originally in mono, so one of the sounds wouldn't come out of the other side, so one was left and the other one was right. So people with one headphone or phones that only played the right side audio versus the left side audio actually didn't hear that. I've been doing YouTube for 5 years now, and I made that mistake. So in a video where I was explaining that people, even who are professionals at their job, can make mistakes, I actually made a technical mistake. I'd like to say that was intentional, but that was not the case. But we're going to go over the video one more time just so people understand why a negligent homicide charge, which I believe something negligent is in second-degree murder, or an accidental discharge that results in somebody dying would be covered under second-degree manslaughter. I mean, I'm taking the prosecution's word for that, because if it isn't and she's acquitted on this, people will lose their mind and start looting and rioting again, even though the Chauvin trial verdict is already on its way, which will likely lead to people losing their minds and looting and rioting again. But I'm hoping against hope that they charged her appropriately in this instance. But we're going to go over the video one more time because I do think that it is important to actually be able to hear it so that we can review and determine what exactly happened here. Now, in my original video, I specifically highlighted this portion, but based on the audio issues, you might not have been able to hear her say that she was going to tase Wright 2 different times before actually saying taser, 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 which is really something that's cut off from the body cam footage that I've seen played by a lot of the media. All I tend to hear in the media reports on this is the taser, taser, taser thing. But in reality, this is sufficient, or the taser, taser, taser thing is sufficient, because the reason you do this is because you intend to deploy a taser. Now, some people are under the misimpression because they believe that it's so impossible to mix up your taser with your gun in a high-stress situation where somebody with a felony warrant just escaped the custody of an officer and is about to take off in a vehicle, that she somehow must have planned to kill this person for no reason, because she has no motive whatsoever. There's no evidence of racism at all whatsoever in this case. And as a cover for this, she shouted, "Taser, taser, taser," and said that she was going to tase him 2 times so that she can shoot him and get away with killing him. By the way, she shot him 1 time and immediately panicked and said, "Oh, bleep, I just shot this person." Look, I'm interested in arguing and debating with people who disagree with me, but there are certain things that are completely beyond dispute and beyond the pale of reason. If you think that this was a premeditated murder, you're insane, you haven't seen the video, you don't know anything about premeditated murders, and you must believe in this malicious nature in police officers or white people or whatever to think that not only did she intend to kill him, but she thought so much about it in that split second that she thought about how she was going to potentially get away with killing him. It's absolutely nonsensical.
As I watched the video and listened to the officer's commands, it is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet. This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction in distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge.
And it shouldn't be worth entertaining, but unfortunately, this is a dominant narrative that we see in our media. Even though this should be disqualifying from somebody ever being viewed as trustworthy ever, this is the prevailing thought among the left on the internet, which is asinine. Even Cenk Uygur, who I've made fun of multiple different times for making ridiculous comparisons, ridiculous analogies, ridiculous misstatements of facts, looked at this video and said, yeah, she unintentionally shot him, it's bad, it doesn't seem reasonable to say that in the moment she planned to kill him, but she was already developing her cover story. It was a split-second decision, she's at fault, but it was not intentional.
For now, looking at that video, he ran, he shouldn't have done that. Should they have shot him for running? No. Did she mean to shoot him or tase him? If all I had was that evidence, I would conclude she meant to tase him. She said taser, taser, taser a number of times. Then after she shoots him, she yells out an expletive, seems genuinely surprised, and then says, "I shot him."
You know that hell has frozen over when Cenk Uygur, of all people, joins the voices of reason, at least in terms of his analysis of the shooting in a vacuum. Even Anna Kasparian on the same show is delivering all this information that we can see on the video with sarcasm and angry faces, as if whether or not this was an accidental shooting is actually within question.
Accidental discharge. Let me just note that this officer has been described as an experienced veteran of the department. Also, I would just say that a gun feels a little different from a taser. But in this case, of course, we have a 20-year-old unarmed man who was shot and killed by a cop who had allegedly mistaken her gun for a taser, Cenk.
Now, the other thing that I covered in my previous video, which somehow was also controversial despite the fact that, again, I was just covering reality, was Daunte Wright's warrant against him and whether or not Daunte Wright knew he had warrants against him when he was running from the police. Which, again, is an asinine assertion made by people on the far left, because in the original body cam footage, you can hear them tell Daunte Wright that he has warrants, break out the handcuffs to arrest him, and that's why he runs. And it's not like they say it once. They say it multiple times and at different levels, because there's like a truck passing by and some people further away are saying it. Everybody's saying it, and Daunte Wright definitely heard it because that's what set off him running from the police. Now, I did make an error when I was talking about the warrant against Daunte Wright, so I will be correcting that error right now. I said in my original video that he had a warrant for his arrest in connection to his robbery of a woman for his rent money, where it was reported that Daunte Wright cornered this woman when they were leaving an apartment, choked her, and pointed a gun at her before stealing $820 from her. Now, it turns out that the warrant for Daunte Wright was not specifically for that instance, even though it was connected to that instance, because he was actually already arrested in connection with that, and he was already charged with an aggravated robbery. But what actually ended up happening was Wright was released with certain conditions on his behavior. And what the warrant against him was actually for was his violation of those conditions of behavior. Now, some of you might make the case that that was a minor mistake and it is not worthy enough of a correction, but it was in fact incorrect. He was arrested for that other thing, even though this is related. The warrant technically was for violation of the terms of release, and I think it is important to be accurate in the cases that we're talking about. And remember, the only reason that this was brought up in my previous video is that there was a narrative that Daunte Wright was pulled over just for air fresheners, even though they pulled him over for having an expired registration on the vehicle, and that he really didn't do anything and he was killed over these air fresheners. That is not the case. The reason Daunte Wright ran from the police is because he had a warrant and he was afraid to go back to jail because he had a $100,000 bond hanging over his head if he were to be arrested again. Now, as I said in my previous video, and the dumb people didn't hear it too well, even though this explains why Daunte Wright ran from the police when he was informed that he had a warrant against him, this does not justify the shooting. It doesn't make what was an accidental shooting a purposeful and justified shooting. That's not how that works. But it is a lesson to people that are out there, that people make mistakes. When cops make mistakes, people end up dead, or they can end up dead, or more likely to end up dead. So it's a really good idea to not put yourself in a position where a cop can make a mistake, and that can cost you your life. Daunte Wright died, yes, because Officer Potter made a mistake and drew her gun instead of her taser and shot and killed him. But he also died because that mistake was allowed to be actually a thing that could impact his life by him trying to run from the police when he had a warrant against him. If he had surrendered, he would still be alive. His 2 kids would still have a father. His mother would still have her son. But he didn't, and because he didn't, that 1 in a million human error that you can't really prepare for ended up costing him his life, and it's really unfortunate. But again, the only lesson that you can actually teach here is don't run from the police. Don't put yourself in a scenario where human error can end your life. Now, I'll continue to follow the case for developments. I'll let you know how the trial works out, whether or not she gets a plea deal, as long as it's interesting and as long as there's interest from you guys in me staying with this case. But overall, as I said in my first video, this case is just not that interesting. It's not that complicated. That's why people keep trying to add in more complications about the location of the taser on the police belt, the weight of the taser, the grip of the taser versus the grip of the gun, as if any of that matters, and as if human error is not a thing. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, then show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on all my social medias. They are linked in the description. You can support me via the support links. Get the tickets to Better Discourse also in the description. This has been me talking about Daunte Wright yet again, setting the record straight, straightening it up, putting the video better. Till next time.